Hello, everyone, and welcome to Hit and Hustle from IrishSportsDaily.com. I'm your host, Greg Flammang, and with me, as always, is Jamie Uyeyama, Mr. Jamie University. It is Thursday, July 9th. We are going to talk some Notre Dame Miami. All right. Jamie just did the team preview for Miami. Mike Frank was in our group chat being like, man, you really hurt my feelings with this preview. Apparently, Miami's going to be really good. So we talk about that since they are the premier matchup of the season. Notre Dame released the Shamrock Series uniforms for the opener against Wisconsin. Put those up on the screen. We can talk about how we feel about those. The new dining hall has opened in the newly renovated, football facility and the facility that Notre Dame is going to be using. We're going to take a look at those photos. I'm very excited about that. And I've got a little men's national team take that it kind of parallels with Notre Dame a little bit. So it's going to be a very fun show today. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. If you like what you hear, hit that like button, hit subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you know whenever it is we are going live. Links to the show are in the description below. As always, the show is brought to you by ESQ Clothing, founded by Notre Dame alum Ge Wang. You've seen ESQ and all your favorite Notre Dame players and coaches, from All-Americans to All-Pros and associates to CEOs. You're in great hands with ESQ's custom clothing. Whether you're looking for the perfect fitting suit, a standout sport coat, or a perfect tuxedo for weddings and galas, ESQ's master tailors blend traditional hand stitching in each garment with Italy and England's best fabrics. Check out Ge's amazing work at esqclothing.com. Book an appointment to upgrade your wardrobe today. Mention ISD and get 10% off your entire purchase. That's esqclothing.com. All right, so the World Cup has ended, Jamie. In a whimper, I have to say, I don't know how you feel about your Canadian boys. The coach,
we feel much different. We feel much different.
The coach, it was a 3-0 loss, but Jesse Marsh was. I thought Canada, the team played well. It got away from them at the very end there, but I thought they played well.
They can hold their heads high for how they played in the game, and add how they like. Marsh I think he was reacting to if anyone saw it, he was reacting to a question because the guy basically said, well, you guys were like, the question sounded like you didn't belong on the same pitch as them or whatever. So he was like F you to the guy.
Yeah. Right? So he's like, and look, they represented themselves very well. I thought they were on the front foot for the first, 35, 40 minutes of the game. The same, unfortunately, can't be said for the U.S. men. No. A total debacle, just a calamitous effort.
Especially after how they played previously.
Yeah, I mean, no one showed up. It's just awful. It did not look good. And so much of this tournament, and there's a parallel to Notre Dame here, and that's why I wanted to bring it up. Like, I think so much of this tournament, people spoke about them the way that we used to speak about Notre Dame, a little bit in 05, 06, a little bit of 09 in there. Brian Kelly stuff, where it was always like, they're mentally going into this. They feel like they have a chance. This feels different.
We believe that we will win.
Yeah, we believe now. Like before, we hope to win. Now we know we can win. And all of these conversations, and then you go out there against the top team and you just get boat raced, all over, and it's just a humiliation. And that's what it used to be for Notre Dame. And I think that when you look at how the men's roster is constructed, they've got some top players. They've got some world-class caliber players. But like beyond the starting 11, anytime you dipped into the backups, it's like there's a considerable drop-off, right?
Yeah.
I mean, like part of the reason why the U.S. team went to the lengths that they did to get Balogun back is because they had to play Ricardo Pepi, who's not good, unfortunately. Yeah. And so that was kind of the thing, and I compared it to like 2018 with, you lose Julian Love and Dante Vaughn comes in and immediately gives up 2 touchdowns. And I think that was a reminder to me of like what it used to be for Notre Dame football and what it is now, right?
Yeah.
Whereas now, I look at a team like France and the forwards that they have, and I think France is like their top. Like they have a guy, Desiree Doué, who doesn't even start for them. He came in the game, and I was like, dude, this is about to pop off. This guy's awesome.
Yeah.
And he came in and he completely changed the game. And I think when I look at Notre Dame's like secondary, right? When you look at like Ethan Long, this guy doesn't even start. He'll start for any team in college football. He is not going to start for Notre Dame at safety. Like Jaden Sanders, DJ McKinney, Christian Gray, Dallas Golden. Like of those four guys, three of them aren't going to start. A couple of them will probably play a bunch, but I couldn't tell you. I couldn't tell you how much Dallas Golden is going to play this year. I couldn't tell you how much Mark Zachary's going to play this year. And they both played 200 plus snaps last year.
Yeah.
And I think like Notre Dame from a roster construction standpoint is France. You know, they are England. You know, like that's what Notre Dame is now. And they've beaten they've beaten the teams like the US can't get past Belgium or Portugal or whatever it might be. Like Notre Dame has beaten those teams. And now it's just a matter of like doing everything. But I thought it was just like that really kind of cemented for me just how far Notre Dame has come from a program standpoint, from a roster standpoint. It's like they are now one of those top teams like what that you would see in the World Cup. Like, man, how come the US can't get guys like that? Like Notre Dame has guys like that on their roster right now. And I think that's like, it's pretty telling to me.
Yeah.
It's just like, man, I didn't know that Notre Dame would ever get to this place. And this is where they're at. So I thought that was notable, Jamie.
Yeah, it's definitely notable. I mean, on it just quickly on the Canadian team too, they're missing 4 starters from that team too. So that's another reason why Canadians, like especially like Canadian soccer fans who have kind of been through it, like the team used to be just horrible for decades. Why it was such a good showing. It was like, Alphonso Davies played 15 minutes. He's the best player on the team. Kone breaks his leg, like a freak accident kind of thing. Moise Bombito had not played a game in a year, and he had to come back, and he was obviously not at the level that he was, and didn't play more than a half in a game until out of the group stage. And then Marcelo Flores tore his knee right before the thing. And those were guys that, if you would have said, like, who are the key guys a year ago, who for them, those 4 guys would have been mentioned. So that's why people can kind of feel proud about it. And I think it fits perfectly with Notre Dame. That's such a great analogy, Greg, because there's so many times if you look at where, like that Julian Love example is like, wow, they fell apart when Vaughn came in. It just wasn't. And it's unfortunate for Vaughn because he wasn't really like a terrible player or anything like that. But just when it came to like upping that level in that thing, you're losing an All-American, and the drop off there, it was significant and was obvious. And then you fast forward to 2024 and think of all those injuries that Notre Dame had during that run. It would have been mind-blowing to have that. If that would have happened in another year, that's a year where Notre Dame is like 7-5.
Yeah,
it was
like 6-6 season.
Yeah, that's one of those kind of things. That's where it would have been at, right? And that just shows like the difference. And I also I highlighted it in 6 Thoughts this week too, that during 2017 to 2021, Notre Dame, great run, right? Won 54 games, won 10 games at least 10 games in each one of those years. Made the CFP twice, the 4-team CFP twice. Mm-hmm. So you're like, that's good times for Notre Dame fans, right? Like those are enjoyable teams, a lot of great teams. But when they got to the level, it was, US going to, group of 16 and then having to, you know, go up a level, go play Clemson, go play Alabama, and it's like they're playing a different sport. That's that's how it looked, right? And I think that's the hugest difference is that during that time, even though Notre Dame made the playoff a couple times, they never ranked higher than 8th in FEI because the shout out to Brian Fremo, his preseason FEI projections are out right now. Notre Dame's projected 4th, but they're like whatever. They're right up there at the top with the top group, which is Georgia, Ohio State, and Oregon are the top 4. Indiana, I think, is 5, just for anyone wondering. But if you look at kind of like how things have changed under Marcus Freeman, so yeah, they're winning games, and you could compare it record wise, similar to what they did at 2017 to 2021. But how much better they are and how much better they have played, like the level that they're at, the talent that they have, and all of that. So Notre Dame the last 3 years has been 6th, and 4th in or 6th, 3rd, and 4th. They have it. There's only 2 other teams that have been top 6 in FEI, finished top 6 in FEI the last 3 years, and it's Oregon and Ohio State and Notre Dame. That's it. That's the list. So no one else has been at that sustained level of like you're a top 6 team in the country. Like if you're top 6, you're like a contender, real contender. And obviously top 3 and 4, you're a contender. And they're projected 4th this year, and no surprise, right, that they are, but they're already just at a higher level like than they were. Like Notre Dame was making the playoffs and they're like the 10th best team according to FEI. Well, okay, there's a big gap between 10 and 1. Well, the gap between 3 and 1, 4 and 1, whatever, is small most of the time. It's right there, right? And the thing is that Notre Dame could end up being 1 this year in FBI and all that kind of stuff. Like, I think that's on the table for them, and it's on the table for more than just them, but it just shows you where things have gone and things have progressed. And yeah, the France is that's such a great analogy, Greg, because that is where they're at, where they're going into, quote unquote, the tournament, the season as, they're built to win. They're built to win. They have the horses.
Yeah. And, obviously they may not, right? They have to, but like you just look at like, man, France has a number of guys who would start for their team, who would be the best player in the United States. And they're on the bench. The United States' best player. And he doesn't start because he's got 3 world-class caliber guys ahead of him, and that's just the way it is. And I think that's where Notre Dame is right now. Like Ethan Long doesn't start because he has a Don Schuler, who's an All-America candidate, and he has Tay Johnson, All-America candidate ahead of him. Luke Tolich, same thing. Like it's like that is where Notre Dame is. And it's like, that's really from a coaching staff. Like that is job one, is to get to that point as a program, to get to that point, and it'd be like, if in 10 years, if we're talking about how the United States team has like what France has, like that's how unlikely as it feels right now, that's how unlikely it would feel for Notre Dame, especially in like the secondary, where it's like, it just hasn't been like that. So I don't know. It's been notable. And I just listening to people talk about them, it's like, man, I feel like I've been through this, and I'm very glad that it's no longer that way, And like we had that conversation last week about like Marcus Freeman guaranteed title and then leave, or 10 years. Like, this is why I go 10 years, because there's no way he would just have a complete, like in my mind, there's no way he would just have a complete drop off to where it would be different than this. And I think that because of that, man, that's amazing to cover. Like, it truly is. I mean, Daniel Jeremiah put out the tweet, like, I love watching teams against Notre Dame secondary because of how well they play. It's like this is the team we cover, and this is the film we watch of these guys. It's such a treat because they are disciplined. They play like the right way. Their technique is good. Like they're all in sync and everything. Like it's just really a joy to cover. And so that's why for me, it's like, man, give me Marcus Freeman for 10 years guaranteed. I'll take my chances. Like I just think there's going to be multiple titles. And I talked about it last week. I think that he could go on a run. I really do. This could be like Pete Carroll, Kirby Smart. I don't want to say Nick Saban because that's kind of like insane, but something like that where it's like every single year, it's just like, my goodness, they're unbelievably talented and they're very well coached and everything. So I personally, I'll latch onto that for as long as I can.
Yeah. Cherish this, Notre Dame fans.
Yes.
It's not like, come on. Like not that they're whatever, like Mike and I, we had the question about, comparing that 2002 secondary and which guys you'd pick. And it's like, yeah, you go back to those teams and some of those teams, there's a lot of great players in those teams. And there's a lot of guys that I wish were playing in a better era because they would have got way more shine than they did because they're good enough to play at this era. Unfortunately, there's a handful of guys in the team and a lot of those teams, right? Like you could pick an all BK team and it is comparable to the team now. Like it kind of is. Like I'm just, obviously knowing that there's guys that have gone on to, be first round picks and all that kind of stuff. There's going to be way more guys that have beat like our first round picks that are like second and third round guys. Just the quality is just there. And, Raymond Harden mentioned too, like it looks different. They do like physically look different. It is a thing. It's just where they're at now. It is a real, it's a glow up. Just an absolute glow up.
Yeah. Speaking of looking different, Notre Dame released their Shamrock Series uniforms. I think it was yesterday. What do we think, Jamie? I mean, so they went with the all blue, the gold numbers. There's some accents in there that that it kind of shows why they did certain things the way that they do. But for Jamie, as far as Shamrock Series uniforms go, alternate uniforms go, how do you feel about these?
I mean, I'm not someone who really cares that much about like the Shamrock Series uniforms. I know some people like really get up in arms about it. I liked how, first of all, I think the messaging was important to have all this kind of stuff because it's hard for people who are just look at it and be like, this sucks or whatever. Then you read some of the things about like the reasons for why the designs and stuff. I'm like, yeah, that's cool. That's cool that they did that. For sure. Right. Like, the 11 things for the 11 national championships. Like, that's cool. That's really cool. Like that they did that. I think it would have been a lot cooler if they went green, playing in Green Bay. Like, think that would have made a lot more sense for this game. But I guess they didn't. You've seen Wisconsin's. Have you seen Wisconsin's?
I have.
It wouldn't have been a good color matchup if they went green.
Yes.
It would have been very Christmassy. People would have been clowning the game. So Under Armour probably saved the game from being clowned by not going green based on how Wisconsin's uniforms are. So to me that there was I think it was the 2012 one when they played in Chicago and they had that was the best helmet out of all the ones that they've done during that time. And I really like those ones. I think were the best Shamrock Series ones. Like I just remember like Teo in that jersey, like, to use another soccer term, like full kit, man, it looked sharp. It looked really good. I was a fan of those ones. These ones, yeah, I'm fine with. They're okay, but I don't get too worked up over it anyway. Either way.
I thought the all whites in 13 when they played Arizona State. I thought those were
Oh, those were cool
those
too.
were pretty
Yeah.
sick. Yeah, because they
Yeah.
had the green socks too. Those were fun. I don't have any sort of strong feelings about this. I think the cleats are pretty sick. I will say that. I think they're nice, and Under Armour, like I'm not a huge fan of their shoes specifically. I'm not getting into. I'm just like aesthetically. I'm not getting into how they're built and stuff like that. But aesthetically, I think they look really good. I'm concerned like the dark on kind of dark here, like on TV. Are we gonna be able to see the numbers kind of thing? I always get a little bit worried about that when it's not like you got a dark uniform and the gold is a little bit darker. There's going to be times when
The
it's
lighting
like,
in this picture too. Not that I'm a photography person, but I'm like, let's give it a little bit more. Can we get a little bit of light? Yeah,
we got to get Paul on that. We got to get Paul to tell us about the lighting on this. But I think it's good. I think it's fine. I don't have any strong objections to it. If the players like it, that's kind of my end all be all.
Oh,
if the players like it, it's all good. So I tell you what, I really don't like Wisconsin's. It's on
terrible.
Twitter, and I don't want to go. It's all red. I'm not a big fan of that. So that can kind of go away. I also want to talk about the opening of the more news that has dropped, the Patrick Kramer dining room, Jamie. I think this is like a big deal. People, I've always been annoyed by this thing. I mean, this was like a decade ago now. But people would talk about Notre Dame's facilities. And I always had the stance of like, look, the University of Notre Dame, everything that you have around the program, whether it's your practice facility, your team, the team building, the indoor facility, whatever it is, like it should all be top notch. Everything should be top notch because you can, right? It's just that you have the ability to do that. And to me, it was always like you don't lose the fabric of what the school is because you have a very good, dining room for your athletes, or you have a very good training room, or you have a very good indoor facility. Like you should never have anything substandard. And I would always hear back, recruits have never said they chose Notre Dame because of the Goog or because of, this little ancillary thing. I'm like, yeah, but you can't go around saying we're Notre Dame, we're the best of the best, and you're wheeling the food in from the dining hall.
Yeah.
You can't say that. Like it's incongruent, So I think now Notre Dame has completely leveled up, and it's just like, and to be clear, the dining hall is for all student athletes. It's not just the football team. It's for any athlete at the university. They can come eat at the dining hall. I think it's great. I think it looks great. I think they've done a very good job. And I think it just adds to, everything that the university is trying to build under Marcus Freeman. Like everything is top notch. And I think it's a big deal. And I think it's going to be very beneficial, not just from a recruiting standpoint, but actually like feeding your athletes and making sure they're getting the type of nutrition they need to be getting.
Yeah. Well, especially too, because obviously you saw Kelly used it as a way to diss Notre Dame, right? Like,
yeah.
Well, you can't really say anything about that anymore. And the thing is too, I was talking to somebody about this who's like a booster for the program, and and we're talking about how like this is going to be the first time ever that Notre Dame can say, "Hey, we have the best blank out of all this stuff that they have the best facilities." It's like, yes, somebody else will build another one in like a year later, and that'll be the best. But Notre Dame will have that for like a while where they're like, wow, this is just compete with anybody, right? And that's just something that you like when you can't even when the Google for the indoor facility previously, you couldn't even have like a really full practice in there. Like that's a problem, right?
Yeah.
Like everything about it just it's one of these things where I'm sure there's regular people look at it and you're like, I don't see it's nothing crazy or whatever. It's like, yeah, well, when you compare it to what was and just what is available and what they're going to do there, I mean, it's mind blowing the difference.
Yeah. It's funny. Something I talked to, ironically, Kyle Hamilton's mom about. She's a very savvy lady, and she always says things like everything, like one of her things she says all the time is everything communicates. And this is kind of one of those examples. Like it just communicates the seriousness of what you're trying to do. You know, the little things, it matters. And so I think that it's just a good example of that. I mean, I would be fired up to go there, right? And I think, there's a lot of people who are like, the players used to eat in the South Dining Hall, the North Dining Hall, and that was like a thing with the campus and stuff. And it's like, I get it if you're losing that a little bit, I understand, but like you want the premier football program in the country, so therefore you got to treat your athletes like, and you got to feed them that way. And it just goes along with it. You can't have everything. And so you just got to have, get the athletes the nutrition that they need, and you can monitor them and all that stuff. They can get as much protein as they need and all that stuff. So it's a big deal. And I think that's very good for Notre Dame. All right, Jamie. Speaking of Notre Dame and the football team in 2026, let's talk about this game against Miami, right? Because I think that, at least for me, right, because it's in November, you don't think too much about it. They lose Messidor. They lose Ruben Bain. They lose Carson Beck. And they lost some offensive linemen as well. In my mind, I just thought this has been my kind of, I guess, without going into your preview and everything, my thought was like, look, they lost these offensive linemen. They lost Bain and Messidor. And so therefore, like they had a special kind of mix of that, and they lost the quarterback. Obviously, they got Darian Mensah, but it's just like they can't be as good as last year, just because last year was kind of lightning in a bottle, which was kind of my operating. That's how I've operated mentally on this game. From reading your preview and looking at everything, that's not necessarily the case. So where do you think this game's going to get a little bit difficult for Notre Dame?
Well, I think if you look at just who they're bringing back, yes, what they lost, they did lose significant talent, right? They lost 9 guys got drafted. It's been a long time since Miami had 9 guys drafted in the same year. 3 first-round picks, right? Obviously, Bain and Messidor were first-round picks. Francis Mauigoa is a first-round pick, right tackle. He's an absolute stud for them.
Yeah,
they had 3 offensive linemen drafted. They lost 4 offensive linemen. Yeah, those are significant losses, right? But if you look at like who's back on the team, couple studs in the secondary too. But 6 of their top 8 are back in the secondary. And the guys who are back are good players. Like, they're very good. Their top 4 corners are back. They were able to get an 8th year out of their, starting Mike linebacker, right? Because he's a guy who's been hurt a lot, and there was COVID and all that, right? So he that's why he's got 8 years, which is ridiculous. But yes,
still doing COVID.
Still doing the COVID thing. Yeah. So he's back, or else they have some other questions with linebacker, but he's back. He was their leading tackler. Yes, Bain and Messidor, they lost, but they picked up, Damon Wilson, who was Notre Dame played when he was on Georgia. He went for huge money to Missouri, and then he was like, screw you, Missouri. I'm going to take huge money from Miami. This guy's the greediest guy out there, I guess. But he's like a potential first-round pick. Like he is a big-time pass rusher, right? And then you look at the numbers of like Marquise Lightfoot, who, Notre Dame fans will know. That was a guy that Notre Dame offered to Chicago era who went down there. Well, he's a great pass rusher. Like, he's already shown, like, man, this guy can really get after the passer. Ahmad Modin's considered by many NFL draft people to be the top defensive tackle in next year's draft class, right? He's probably going to be a first round pick. So, I mean, Justin Scott, who, Notre Dame fans know, he's a pretty darn good player. And he's a guy who's a 5-star. He's not even the best defensive tackle on the team. Like he's good, but he's not the best defensive tackle on the team. They have like other depth. And then you look at on offense, Tony, if I would say, if you're going to say just based on who are the 3 best players in the country coming back, you would say in some kind of order, Leonard Moore, Jeremiah Smith, and Malachi Tony would probably be in the top 3 of everybody. And if not, they're in the top 5 of everybody, right? They're all that good. And Tony's in there because what he did as a true freshman, he was huge for them. Yeah. He's back. He's going to be better as a sophomore than he was as a true freshman. He was already great as a true freshman. Mark Fletcher, there's running back, led the ACC in rushing. Had a great CFP, had over 500 yards in their 4 games. He's back. You mentioned Mensa. I think one of the things last year that they didn't have was CJ Daniels, he made the unbelievable catch against Notre Dame. He was a 6th round pick. Keelan Marion was like their second leading receiver on the team. Like they had, those guys are gone, but they upgraded because Cooper Barcotti came with Mensa, and he's had over 1,000 yards. They're the only team in the country that has 2 guys who had over 1,000 yards in the Power 4 last year. So they got like a number 1 and probably like a 1B, or probably like a 2 or a high end 2. And then they brought 2 other guys, Jacobs from South Carolina and another kid from West Virginia, who are both like vertical threats, and who are the top receivers on their team. So if that's your 3rd and 4th guys, also they've recruited guys that are pretty good too, are going to step up. Like their receiving core is probably closer to 2024 when they were the number 1 offense in the country. Mensa is a lot more aggressive down the field than Beck was. I believe he had the most deep pass attempts out of any Power 4 quarterback in the country last year. They're going to be a much more vertical offense, much more explosive passing offense. They're going to be the best team in the ACC, and I don't even really think it's close. It's a top 10 team. Like the pass rush is going to be awesome. Now, I mean, I'll get into why there's some red flags about them too that, could come and bite them. But to anyone think that, it's like automatically they're going to be much worse. It's like, no, they're still going to be really, really good. Maybe they won't be as good as last year. They're just going to be different, but they'll still be very, very good.
Do you think Barcotti would start at Notre Dame? It'd have to be boundary, right?
Yeah, he would have to start a boundary. He probably would start. Like he would be one of the 3 best. I'm sure it'd be hard to argue that he wouldn't be. But I do think that he was because he's Duke's number 1 guy. Mm-hmm. He wouldn't be Notre Dame's number 1 guy. Like he's, that's how I kind of see it. Hey, he's a good player. Like he's a very, very good player. But yeah, I don't think he's on it's perfect for him to come in and be like, hey, this is like a second guy. Like that makes a lot more sense.
I mean, he could be, if he was at Notre Dame, because I feel like Notre Dame's boundary, whoever it is, it will be Notre Dame's 3rd guy, right? When you have Faison and then you have Graham, like I assume those 2 are going to be 1 and 2, so it's interesting because I remember when he was being recruited out of Mater Dei, I liked him, I thought, but it's one of those things like, that's the problem. Like you don't know where things are headed with like your field and your slot, because like if he was your 3rd guy, right, then maybe it's like, oh, okay, that makes a lot more sense. But when you're recruiting someone as like a boundary at the time, you'd be like, no, we need like a number 1, Yeah. And so it's just interesting. I've always kind of been interested in him and what his college career was going to be. So I I hear that. I mean, that game's going to be unbelievable, right? I mean, I guess what are the red flags that you see from Miami, and how you feel like they can be? There's some questions around them.
Well, I think you can't just shush anyone that says, "Oh, well, they got a great offensive line coach. Alex Mirabel is a great offensive line coach," and they're going to just plug and play that they're going to be the same.
Mm-hmm.
No, you can't just. First of all, it never works that way. It never works that way. There's going to be a drop off of some point. At some point, there's going to. If you look at, say, the 4 starters that are gone, combined 100 starts in college for those guys. Those guys played over 4,000 snaps last year combined. Those guys. They played 6 guys on the offensive line last year, right? They had 4 full-time starters that had all the job. Their left tackle, center, right guard, right tackle. Those guys started and played every game. The left guard, 2 guys split the left guard position. Both those guys are back. And you know what? Maybe those guys, you would say, though, first of all, they're the guys who split. They were the 5th and 6th best guys, on their offensive line last year. And those are the guys who are back. And they never missed a game. They played all 16 games. Like, it is the opposite of what Notre Dame has experienced in the offensive line the last couple of years, where they've had starters go down, at points of the season or in preseason where they've missed things like that. They had all of that continuity the whole season. So they never had to plug in the next guy and say, okay, well, now you got to block this guy from Ohio State or this guy from Ole Miss or whatever. They never had to do that. They never had to deal with any of that the whole year. They were totally healthy. And these guys who were obviously good players, you're plugging in new guys into that. One of them is a 5-star, that is a really good. He's got a chance to be like a really top pick. Eventually Jackson Cantwell is one of the top recruits in the entire 2026 class. And he's probably going to be good right away. But even if you're good right away, doesn't mean like he's going to be Maui Goa. Like, he's not going to be at that level right away, right? It just doesn't happen like that, right? It's like if you look at Joe Alt, who was good when he started in halfway through his freshman season and was good then. Well, there's levels to this. He was much better as a junior. Like, so he's probably not going to be that guy yet. And still, there's also some guys who come in who start as 5-stars, or you look at like Anthony Knapp, who played as a true freshman. I know he wasn't a 5-star, but there was a lot of good stuff that he did as a true freshman. There's also a lot of like, hey, he's still a true freshman. So you don't know exactly what they're going to get at Cantwell. They didn't bring in anybody from the portal that is a plug and play. They brought one guy, Jamal Merriweather from Georgia, who was at Georgia, but he didn't play. He had like 77 snaps in 3 years. So if that guy starts, it's not like you're bringing in a guy who's like super experienced and was this high level. He was a 3-star kid too. It wasn't like he was this high level guy that they're bringing there too. He might end up being a decent player for them, but bringing that guy who didn't play at Georgia to possibly play there, or having the guys who are the next in line, it's like, there's just going to be a drop off. Like, and I know they're going to go into November and those guys are going to get some experience there too.
Right.
But it's not going to be as good. Their offensive line isn't going to be as good. And I think one of the huge things too on defense that I've already kind of circled, and you'll see how it progresses during the season, but Keontae Scott was like, man, a game changer for them at nickel. He was awesome. Like, you just don't see a lot of guys nickels get double-digit tackles for loss. Like, he was super disruptive. And you could just throw in the highlights from the college football playoff alone, and that guy was just making plays, that game-changing plays. Like, he was a difference maker for them. Well, they have to they're got to play a new nickel there. They got Omar Thornton from Boston College, and they view him as as nickel. And he had 8 tackles for loss last year as a safety. Like, he's a downhill guy. He's also garbage in coverage. Like, he's not a good player as a slot defender. His passer rating gave was 149.0 NFL passer rating. Like I think he gave out completions on 13 of 16 targets, had over 10 yards per attempt against them and 2 touchdowns. He's not a good player in cover. He's not a good guy you want as your slot defender. If you get in a matchup, that's not who you want there. And they have other options. Yeah, they have other young guys that could be great players for them. They certainly have had, like, Bryce Fitzgerald had 6 picks for them last year as a true freshman. They could have somebody as a true freshman who comes in and plays right away. They could have a guy who's ready as a sophomore who is their Tay Johnson. They've recruited that at that level. That's there, but it's not a guarantee. And it's also not a guarantee that they all stay healthy, which for the most part they did last year. And I think the big thing with Bain and Messidor, first of all, no one had any idea how good those guys were going to be. Like, no. Bain was very, very good as a freshman, like incredible as a freshman. And then he was hurt a bit as a sophomore, but he was still good. Nobody said, oh man, this guy's going to be unblockable. Like, people are going to have to triple team him. That's basically how he got treated for most of the rest of the year. And then when you throw on the other side, Messidor was basically unblockable as well. And he got so many one-on-one matchups. Like, they were incredible. They were Bain won ACC Defensive Player of the Year. He was an All-American. Messidor should have been an All-American too. Like, he was that good. Obviously, they're both first-round picks. But, like, you had 2 guys who were just dominant pass rushers. And let's just say that their pass rush is just as good. Because I think it's possible, right? Based on the guys that they have, bringing in Wilson to add with certain guys. Armando Blunt's like another guy who's like was great as a pass rusher, who's like plays in, move inside, really dangerous. You know, Moden can get after the passer, Scott can get after Lightfoot, all these guys. They've had some other young guys that are going to develop too. They're going to have a really good defensive line. But to me, when I watched the game last year and watched it again, the hugest difference in the game wasn't just what those guys did as a pass rush. It was how much they just dominated versus the run. And not the interior guys, Bain and Messidor, like Knapp and especially Emil Wagner could not block them against the run. Could not at all. Like, got handled. Wagner got handled. And it wasn't really a reflection of Wagner as a player the rest of the year. He played well the rest of the year. And that didn't happen with anybody else. But it showed you the kind of level that those guys were at. And that was the thing, too, is like those guys were game wreckers versus the pass and run. Well, Wilson has been terrible versus the run his whole career. Even last year, he's like a guy who had like 300 something pass rush snaps and 150 versus the run. Like, he's a guy they use specifically, like they want to get him in to rush the passer. Lightfoot as well, right? Like, he's undersized. He's super lightning quick and he can be disruptive, whatever, but he's not the same. He's not going to dominate at the point of attack in the same kind of way. Like, that's a guy that, frankly, Cooper Flanagan could be driving Marquise Lightfoot into the ground, like, because against like a really good tight end. Well, Cooper Flanagan is a stud blocker. You wouldn't want him to block Messidor or Bain one-on-one, right? Like, and that's like a real thing that I don't think they're going to have there. So running the ball on them, I think, is going to be a lot different. And they also have questions at linebacker too, right? Because they lost two of their top 3 linebackers. So the other 2 guys, they didn't bring anybody in. So they're going to have to develop from within and see what they have there. And I would say probably was the weakness of their defense last year, but it just couldn't get exposed because the secondary was so strong and the D-line was so strong that it didn't really matter. But you could see that be like much more of a problem. And to me, this is the hugest thing. And I'm so glad that it kind of leads back into what you were bringing up before, Greg, about how the injuries and the drop off, if like you looked at like the top 11 or whatever, I do think they have good depth and all that at a lot of spots, right? Obviously, like you would say O-line is definitely questionable. Their depth there, and then linebacker definitely questionable. But at every other spot, you'd say, hey, they're pretty deep. Like the drop off if somebody goes off shouldn't be that big, in the same way. But last year, I mean, this has got to be just a record. Like they had so many guys be healthy the whole year. Like
You're talking about Miami.
That's just so rare for that to happen. So Bain and Messidor missed one game. So he played 15 games. Bain played 16. Moden missed 2 games. I believe Scott missed 3 games later in the season. And they had, one of their receivers missed a couple games. That's it. That in terms of the guys that they lost for during that time, like they didn't have guys who missed. Mark Fletcher also missed a couple games, like in the middle of the season. But every single one of those guys was back and healthy for the playoffs, and they all played all during the playoff.
Yeah.
Think of the difference between where Notre Dame had, KVA was out for the CFP. He didn't get healthy really until like the Georgia game, and he wasn't even fully healthy then, right? You had Knapp getting hurt. You had Riley Mills tearing his knee during that Indiana game. Howard Cross was playing on a bum ankle for basically half the year.
Love was hurt the whole playoff.
Love was hurt the whole playoff. You lost Ben Morrison for the season, all those kind of things. And yeah, that was extreme how many injuries they had, but Miami didn't have to deal with any of that. Like they had unbelievable, Boubacar Traore, Jordan Botelho, right? You could go down the list. There's a ton of guys. It was unbelievable what Miami, how healthy they were. And a really big reason for it, I believe, is their schedule was a joke last year. Like, I'm not talking about just like who they played or whatever. Like, yeah, okay, they beat the teams who they beat. They were a good team. No, I'm not saying that. They beat obviously Notre Dame to start the season. That's a huge win. You got to tip your captain. They go and they they have that run in the playoff. They beat those teams. Yes, that's great. Like they're a very, very good team. But they had one road game before November. 6 of their first 7 games were at home. Like, have you ever seen that, Greg? Where like 6 of your first 7 games are at home? Like,
not south of USC, brother.
No, it's not something that happens. I don't know how that worked out that way. Like the ACC like set it up for them or something. And their only road game in the first 7 games was at Florida State. It's 400 miles. Like they never left the state of Florida for for September and October. They didn't have to leave once. Like that is crazy. You know how much like wear and tear of just like having to go to like travel to this game or that game and that, like,
I mean, it was like one of the biggest talking points of like the Big Ten season last year. I mean, they talked about it every single week.
Yeah.
So obviously there's something to it.
And so their first road game where they had to leave the state was SMU, beginning of November. Not a shock they lost that game when you think about like they hadn't gone on the road and played like anywhere like a big road game. Like they hadn't done it the whole season. And yeah, they had a couple more in November, but they were like really healthy throughout that whole time because they didn't have anybody have anything. And it's first of all, it's like a scientific fact. Like there's been studies done that more travel adds like more stress and people get sicker more, people get injured more. And it's definitely a thing with athletes, right? Like that is one of those things. And there's a lot of people who make a lot of money betting on games that they study this kind of thing to be like, oh, they got 3 road games in a row and this is that, or, oh, it's short rest here and that. Like they didn't have to deal with that.
Yeah.
And then because of that, they went into the playoff healthier than anybody else. There wasn't another team that had their kind of health going into it where they didn't miss any top guys. So during that four game run that they had, none of their top guys were out. Like the exact opposite of what happened with Notre Dame. Or like if you look at, say, like Penn State the year before, where it's like, well, Abdul Carter hurt his shoulder and there's this and that. Like they didn't have to deal with any of that, right? So it's one of these things where, like, this year, the very first game on the road, Pac-12 after dark at Stanford. Is Stanford good? No. Miami should kill them. Should absolutely kill them. Well, they got to travel over 2,000 miles for that game. They literally, like, if the first, and then 2 weeks later, they got to travel to Winston-Salem. They got to play Wake Forest. So true road games in the first 3 weeks of the season for them. They've traveled more miles than they did the entire regular season in the first 3 games. And then they got to go play at Clemson. And they have to play at North Carolina. And then they have to travel to Notre Dame in November. And those are the only road games they're playing this year. But that's over 6,000 miles they're traveling there. Well, it was like 2,000 for the entire year last year. And before November, it was 400 miles. It's a huge difference compared to what they did last year. And yes, it would be totally different if they were going to play, if that first game was like, well, they got to go to Texas A&M or they got to go to, Ohio State or whoever. And that's a tougher game. Yeah, of course, that makes it a tougher schedule and all that kind of stuff. But there's just, chances are that is going to add some wear and tear to them that they didn't have last year. And just by pure luck, because dumb luck happens, guys get hurt. It's football. It's a violent sport. They're going to have more injuries this year. There's no way they're going to be as healthy. It's just not possible. And I don't care. Like, and it's not even saying anything again. They probably have a great, physical therapy, people and all that kind of stuff. And that probably helps a lot of these guys stay healthy and all that too. But guys break arms. They do this, that happens in football. Something's going to happen where they're going to lose a few guys to injuries. So how healthy are they going to be in November compared to where they were, first of all, opening week last year? I mean, their full health, whatever. It's just going to be completely different. It's going to be completely different.
I mean, that's what I meant by, like, there was so much that went right for them. Like even the first game of the year is at home against Notre Dame, against CJ Carr, who's starting his first game, who, like, regardless of how he plays, like, the coaching staff doesn't know how he's going to play. Like, they hadn't figured out, maybe don't play Carson Hobbs in this game. They hadn't figured out, like, Tay Johnson is maybe our best safety yet, and, you win by 3, right? It's like marginal, The thing about, like, they had to go to Texas A&M, and it's like crazy windy that day. It's like 30 mile an hour winds, right? Well, what does Texas A&M want to do? Like, they want to throw the ball over the top, and they can't because it's all windy, Yeah. The schedule thing, like, it broke for them in the right way. They played the national title game in their own stadium. Yeah. Like it's just so many things that just kind of break for you. That's why I kind of think, man, it was kind of lightning in a bottle, where it's like, you just didn't know Messidor and Bain were going to be that good, and it's just like the injury stuff. Like, man, Notre Dame has been hurt. This was like a huge thing for me whenever I discussed, like, Harry Hiestand and how good he was as an offensive line coach. He went from 12 on to when he left the first time, his left tackle was healthy the entire time. Never missed a game, ever. Like, Quentin Nelson missed one game during the 3 years that he was a starting guard. Missed one game. And then the next game, he still came in and played, right? And then the first thing that happens when Jeff Quinn comes in is, like, He loses Blake Fisher. He loses Alex Bars. He loses like all these guys for like extended periods of time. And you know, the thing with Heaston was like they didn't have depth, but they didn't need it because they never got hurt, you know. And so there's always like special things that happen during a run like that where you get lucky with stuff with schedules. And this is why I don't like everyone who bags on Notre Dame because of their schedule. Like they're just being disingenuous when you look at everyone's schedule. Like what did Indiana, what was the gauntlet that they played last year? Like nobody, right? What was the gauntlet that Michigan played in 2023 during theirs? Didn't happen, right? It's all about now. And look, it is what the sport is at this point. It's all about if you want to make a run in the playoffs, you got to beat some very good teams. You cannot get to the title game and not have beaten, you know, obviously top 12 teams, right? At least 3. And so like that is what the sport is now. You got to play a couple tough games in the regular season, and then you got to weather the storm for the rest of the year. And I think that like it is a little bit overblown, and this is getting out of Miami and kind of into what like schedules are now and Notre Dame's run and Miami's run and everybody's run. I think because of the NIL era and because of the portal and everything, like I just don't think that the mid-tier teams are as pushovery as they were in the past, where it's like you needed to have marquee games to measure the quality of a team. Like I think the mid-tier teams are just a good bit better than they used to be, right? Because of the parity and everything, because everyone's kind of moving around. Like you don't have to be truly bad. Now you can get into the end of the year, like Syracuse, right? Where you know, your quarterback's hurt, your other quarterback's hurt, and now it's just like you're in shambles, right? And it's like, okay, you're not that good. We're talking about like the end of November, but in like September and everything, like whatever, like so Michigan State, for example, whatever Michigan State is in November, like they're not going to be that in September. They're going to be a better version of that just because of the nature of how these things go, right?
It's a new coaching staff.
Same thing with Wisconsin, right? Like they're not going to be as bad. And in my opinion, it's not going to matter because Notre Dame is a wagon, especially from what Wisconsin does. But like what I'm saying is like things break for you sometimes, and you got to be able to capitalize on it. And Miami capitalized on it to the extent that they did, you know. And kudos to them, right? Like I'm not taking anything away from them. This happened for Notre Dame, you know, where Notre Dame got Texas A&M before they knew that Connor Wegman was trash, right? Yeah. So things happen for people.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I would say that Miami even benefited from the stupid ACC rules where they didn't qualify for the championship game.
Right. Yeah.
Because they would have had another extra game that you added onto it. And they wouldn't, even if they had won that, they wouldn't have been a top 4 seed. So they would have still had to play an extra game on top of it and then had the 4 games after.
Yeah.
And yes, they would have probably not played they would have played a home game, right? Like instead of a road game to start, but that's still an extra game. So if they were playing Virginia in that ACC championship game, well, think about how Carson Beck for Georgia in the SEC championship game tore his elbow.
Yeah.
Like that was a big deal. Like something like that could have happened if they played one extra game, right? All it takes really is that one extra game. And I think there's just things that happen that, they had a lot of breaks go their way, which is, you know, Indiana too. It's the exact same thing. They had a lot of breaks go their way. And that happened. I mean, really like the 2024 Notre Dame team based mostly on injuries, more things went against them than not. So it is kind of crazy that they did as well as they did. But I think it also is a reflection of just like kind of how the culture of the team and the talent and the depth and stuff too.
Well, I mean, just the fact that like, okay, everyone got hurt for one during Notre Dame's run. And then don't forget, like, because of the terrorist attack in New Orleans, they had 2 less days to prepare for the Orange Bowl than Penn State did. which is, it just like was one of those things. Like it was unfortunate that it happened, but like that was not something that worked in Notre Dame's favor. So they will overcome those things. What I will say is that game is going to be unbelievable. There's no way I'm not going. I don't know what your plan is, Jamie, but I will be at that. Yeah, we will be at that. We'll have full coverage of that game. It's going to be amazing. And so I look forward to it. It's going to be great. Like Miami's going to be good. Everything we just said about, the fortunate thing, they're going to be a good team, right? And especially for that game, it's going to be special. It's going to be awesome to see those, like the uniform matchup and something very cool about college football. It's going to be a lot of fun. So, all right, that's a good place to end it. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. If you like what you heard, hit that like button, hit subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you know whatever it is we are going live. We will have 2 shows next week, some way, Jamie. As you know, my son is in the regional playoffs, but the schedule broke so that I should be able to record from the hotel room next week. So we should be all right, Jamie, barring any sort of Wi-Fi situation. So that's going to be the deal. We'll talk to you soon. Enjoy your weekend, everyone. We'll talk to you next week. Keep hitting and hustling.